Morning, Maddie. You feel like listening to a couple more stories? I got the time if you've got the time. I got up at 2:30 this morning. It's 6:15 now. You know, one of those days my body just said at 2:30, all right, let's go, we're up. And I said, body, we're retired. We have nowhere to go. We have nothing to do. It's pitch dark out, nothing's open. What is it you want to do at 2:30? And my body said, let's pee a lot. So that's, old man life, I guess. But might as well take some time to read some stories. We are, I think, about halfway through Expat Days at the moment. Looks like the two stacks of paper of equal size. I wish I could remember who sent me these PDFs, but I don't. Some fan, some viewer. But they've turned out to be very useful. It is actually easier to read off a printed page than off the book, off a piece of A10 printer paper in 14-point Arial font, and it's easier to read. So, let's get the appropriate glasses on. All right, that'll do. Raging Bull, this is called. My friend Barry invited me to go to the fights with him tonight. I know I've recorded this somewhere in the past. It may, already be on the channel somewhere. But I'm going to read all of these, everything in the book. I know I've dramatized some of these on the channel, but we're just going to read through the book. So, Raging Bull. My friend Barry invited me to the fights with him tonight. I told him that I had to go to the funeral of a close friend instead. And because I hate to lie, now I have to find a close friend and kill him. Barry is a big enthusiast of Thai boxing, a sport that, to my mind, combines the worst attributes of a prayer meeting and a riot. If you've never attended a Thai boxing match, let me first congratulate you and then fill you in on what you've missed. First, you sit down in a crowded arena that's hot enough to grow orchids and smells like old socks. You're jammed in with about 1,000 of the worst characters in the province, all of whom have had their personalities modified for the evening by whiskey and bloodlust. There is a dress code. Every spectator must wear clothing that he slept in for at least 3 nights. Your ticket will bear the number of a seat in some stadium destroyed by Allied bombers back in 1944. So you claim a spot on a hard wooden bench at random, and you sit on your program to keep the larger splinters out of your butt. This is weird. Just yesterday I watched Bangkok Pat's latest video, and all of he's Bangkok Pat. So all of his stuff is about Bangkok. Not much of it ever interests me, but his technique, his style, and the work that he puts into these. I love Bangkok Pat's channel. He pointed out that, what's the stadium? It's on Rajadamnern Avenue. Anyway, it was the first boxing stadium built in Thailand, and it was built in the 1950s. So this line, you're sitting, your tickets for a match held in a stadium that was bombed by Allied bombers in 1944. No, that's impossible, Steve. But we bombed Bangkok, right? 1944, killed 4,000 civilians in Thonburi. Incendiary bombs. We burned civilians alive in Bangkok. And as far as I know, that is not taught in history classes here in Thailand. You sit on your program to keep the larger splinters out of your butt. Even before the boxers appear, the crowd will be shouting and screaming and waving their arms. The yelling is in reference to the projected odds of the first fight. The arm waving is aimed at the mosquitoes that are drawn to the oceans of blood spilled at these events. Soon, the first pair of gladiators are led out into the ring by their piliang, which translates as nanny or nursemaid. Yes, it does. At this point, the band kicks in. The orchestra at a Thai boxing match consists of 3 very ancient and venerable men playing even older instruments: drum, cymbals, and flute. Their job is to provide a noise like a train wreck, only louder and more prolonged. The boxers begin a series of semi-graceful movements designed to pay homage to their dance teachers. They circle the ring, dipping and bowing, posturing and posing, making obeisance to the 4 cardinal points of the compass, the 4 primary elements, and the 4 Marx Brothers. After they've exhausted themselves this way, they're given a rest period, during which the crowd commences betting. This activity is illegal, so everybody does it surreptitiously by waving handfuls of money in the air and screaming out their bets at the tops of their voices. A few bet on the outcome of the fight, but most bet on which fighter will be the first to jump the top rope and begin beating the hell out of the orchestra. Eventually, the 2 combatants are brought to the center of the ring, and the referee explains the rule. There is only one rule. In Thai boxing, you cannot poke the other fella in the eye. Since people who make their livings this way can't be too bright, they're made to wear thickly padded gloves in case they forget the rule. The fighters return to their corners, do some more stylized praying and bowing, and get a few last-minute good luck tattoos applied by their coaches. The band wheezes up a squeaky crescendo, the gong sounds, and the fight is on. A Thai boxer's uniform consists of a pair of polyester trunks that go from his ribs to his knees in any of a large assortment of unattractive colors. The trunks are so large because they need to accommodate a lot of advertisements, sold by the promoters to a wide range of products. Most of the products will be in the healthcare field, as befits an athletic event, like tobacco and alcohol. The size of the trunks and the weight of the appliqued corporate logos will dictate a fighter's style. Some fight with one hand and hold up their trunks with the other, while some prefer to throw a flurry of blows with both hands and then back off and pull up their trunks. In Thai boxing, you're allowed to hit your opponent with anything except patio furniture. So there's a lot of kicking, elbowing, kneeing, and butting with the head. Betting continues until the last round, or until one of the fighters or a falang in the audience attacks the band. A win is achieved by knockout or by points awarded by a panel of judges. All of the judges are blind, but one. This makes bribery much easier. Points are calculated on an arcane system of judgment based on form, technique, and how long a boxer lets his trunks slip down before pulling them back up. When a victor is announced, both fighters raise their hands in triumph, strut around the ring, bowing to people who bet on them, and fall into each other's arms like brothers, instead of a pair of guys who just spent 15 minutes beating the crap out of each other. They stumble out of the ring and into an ambulance, and everyone throws peanut shells at the band until the next pair of boxers appears. An evening of Thai boxing goes on as long as there are still pairs of contestants willing to listen to the squeaking and squawking of the orchestra. They are carefully paired by height, weight, and tattoos. While Western boxing ranks fighters by bantamweight, lightweight, heavyweight, etc., A Thai boxer will fight in the stubby little guys with salamanders on their forearms class, or wiry little guys with monkeys on their backs, really skinny little guys with tigers on their tummies, etc., etc. The bands are ranked too by titles like terrible, abysmal, and simply awful. While I don't enjoy the fights myself, I don't begrudge Barry his infatuation with the sport. On the last Monday of every January, I wake up at 4:30 a.m. to watch the American Super Bowl, a game that Aussies like Barry say is for Seppo wimps. Imagine players being paid tens of thousands of dollars each to play perhaps 10 minutes of a game where they're allowed to wear more protective gear than plutonium miners. I agree with him on that point. It takes a lot of guts to climb into the ring wearing nothing but a pair of gaudy bloomers and face the music. I have never been to a Thai boxing fight and don't ever want to go. Oh, use a coaster, Steve. This is a laminated tabletop. I'm sure I won't damage it if I don't wear a coaster, but if I don't use a coaster. But I like using them. And they have Doraemon on them. I don't know if you know Doraemon is a popular cartoon character anime. Yeah, I've never been to a fight, but it used to be in the evenings. You know, the little Nitnoy stores, little tiny shops usually set up in somebody's front living room. And they'll sell, you know, little bars of soap and packages of detergent and tampons and liquor, Lao Khao and Lao Dang and things like that, and Gusso, things like that. I would go in the evening to buy cigarettes, and it used to be in the evenings that a lot of people in town who didn't have a television would gather there, and they would play either the soap operas or the fights. And there'd be 10 or 15 guys lounging around the store, drinking homemade moonshine and watching the fights. And I'd go in and buy cigarettes, and in order to bond with my male neighbors, I'd stand there and go, oh, oh. Every time a punch is landed, you're supposed to go, oh, oh. So I would do that for 3 or 4 minutes and then leave. But, like I've said, I needed to come up with a column every week. So 1 week, that was it, Thai boxing. There's a wonderful movie, if you get a chance, it used to be on Netflix. It's called Buffalo Girls. There are professional Thai boxers who are children. Oh, my Eustachian tube just blew out. I went all day yesterday, it didn't click once. But when I try to do this, I think it's shouting, it's using the loud voice, projecting from the diaphragm. Yeah, Buffalo Girls. It's about 2 little girls who are professional boxers. They don't go to school, they train all day like regular boxers. And they get in the ring and beat the crap out of each other. And it's about one of these girls in her pursuit of the title. And the other girl is the antagonist. She's trying to win the title herself. And it's pretty grotesque from a Western point of view. These little girls go through everything that adult boxers go through. They are abused by their parents, who are their coaches. They beat the crap out of each other in the ring for the amusement of an audience full of adults. And Daddy takes the purse if you win. And you get to, I suppose, go back into the gym tomorrow and practice some more and go fight more, because Daddy takes all the money. But this is a thing, professional child Thai boxers in Thailand. And I think it is confined to Isan at this point. I think it is something that Thai people, is it Lumpini Stadium? Yeah, you don't see it on the TV, and you don't see it, I think, in the stadia. But it's a thing, and Buffalo Girls is a really interesting movie about it. And if you know what a Buffalo Girl was, It used to be a farmer who could not afford his own buffalo, and this goes back hundreds of years, and it was still being done, I think, up until the invention of the tractor. A farmer would rent a buffalo for a few days to plow his rice paddies, and the buffalo would come with a young woman. And that young woman would bunk in the farmer's house with him and his family for those 3 or 4 days it took to plow the field. And that young woman was traditionally available to the farmer sexually as part of the deal. That's why they sent young women. And the buffaloes that were tended by young women got more work because there was a little bit of sex thrown in there with it. And these were called buffalo girls. And it was absolutely the lowest form of rural prostitution in the kingdom. But, yeah, and again, I think that all ended with the invention of the tractor. You know, what NGOs cannot do, what social workers cannot do, the invisible hand of the marketplace sometimes will do. All right, we're going to try this again. A river runs through it. I hate boats, still true. I figure that if God had wanted us to float around on the ocean, he would have made us all from styrofoam Big Mac cartons. But I love to fish. When I was 10 years old, my grandfather taught me how to fish on the Santa Monica Pier in Los Angeles, which he said reminded him of the river jetties in his hometown of Vilnius, Lithuania. I think now that he liked fishing because it was the only recreation affordable by an uneducated immigrant. And while I can remember him teaching me how to knot a line and bait a hook, I don't remember ever learning how to remove a hook from a fish's mouth on the Santa Monica Pier. Either Grandpa was no fisherman or the bay was already dead even then. But either way, I still learned to love fishing. That's why I don't read fishing magazines. They're always written by guys named Bubba, who appear in grainy snapshots on the stern of over-designed motorboats, usually standing next to a fighting chair that looks like something you'd find in a medieval gynecologist's office. They've always got their fingers of one hand wrapped around a can of beer and the fingers of the other hand holding up some unfortunate monster by his gill slits. The Bubbas with their articles on Mad Dog Albacore off the Seychelles always miss the point, in my opinion. And even though I live on an island, the reefs around that island, and thus the fishing around that island, were destroyed by tin mining a century ago. So whenever I get the urge to get my sinker wet, I head straight for the Chalong fishing park. I don't know if the reefs have recovered. Jacques Cousteau did a documentary on the reefs of Phuket, and he blamed the Moken sea gypsies for dropping their anchors on the reef, for destroying these reefs. The reefs had been dead for 100 years. The silt from dredge tin mining offshore had completely smothered and destroyed all the reefs around the island of Phuket and all the way up here as well. And but Jacques Cousteau apparently thought a human agency was more exciting to blame. I guess tin mining's a human agency as well. But the Moken were still there, still fishing, I guess. It was for whatever reason, they were a more tempting target to Mr. Cousteau. Fake news. The park, the Chalong Fishing Park, that is, consists of 4 ponds, which up until somebody got a marketing brainstorm 10 years ago, were simply the irrigation reservoirs for a system of family-owned vegetable farms. These freeholds cover a tiny valley set between 2 ranks of medium to small mountains. The valley is far enough from the beaches and main roads to have been overlooked by the resort developers who have, in only a few short years, turned a sleepy little tin mining island into the world's premier vacation destination. So the area appears today much as it has forever. The only signs of civilization to be seen from beside the ponds are the golden roofs of Chalong Temple and the open mouth of the valley. At the open mouth of the valley. Oh, I'm rough this morning. Forgive me, Maddie. Give me a minute to warm up. The ponds are fed and connected by streams that begin in the mountains. And under the sound of the wind, there is always the clatter of falling water. Each pond has a resident family of feral ducks who dive in the weeds for lost bait. Decrepit gazebos of bamboo and palm thatch ring the ponds. For 20 baht per hour, you get a gazebo, a rusty old rod with some knotted nylon line, and a plastic bag full of evil-smelling pseudo bait. There's a surprisingly good restaurant to order drinks from, and if you should happen to catch anything big enough to eat, they'll be happy to prepare it for you. If you don't, they have a fridge full of fish to order from. And of course, because labor is the cheapest commodity in Asia, you also get a caddy. My favorite fishing caddy is Doom. She's very big for a Thai woman, almost 6 feet tall. And she has very dark skin, a flat nose, broad lips, and short, kinky hair. She told me once that she was so dark because her father was Burmese, but I've never seen a Burmese with nappy hair. However, June is about 45 years old, and if she would rather that her father was Burmese than an American GI, that's fine with me. At first off, I was put off by having an audience when I fished, and June was none too happy about being alone with a foreigner for hours at a time. She made sure that the first day that I understood her function was merely to fetch drinks and cut bait. And I made sure that she understood I was not looking for anything more exciting than a hard tug on my line. Since then, we've drifted into the most comfortable of relationships, that of a couple of fishing buddies. Like any good partnership, ours has settled into a routine. I pick a gazebo far away from the teenagers who skip school in the afternoons and come to flirt with the younger caddies. June brings over the rod and bait, an ice bucket, and a bottle of Coke. I don't drink the local beer, but the management looks down on customers bringing their own. Luckily, June is addicted to Coca-Cola. So in return for my buying her 2 bottles of Coke per hour, she puts the cans of Tiger beer that I bring on ice and doesn't tell the boss. More lies again, I don't drink, but the audience expected that of an expatriate columnist in 1990, whatever. While we get settled in, she chatters in her pretty sing-song voice and dippy southern accent about her ex-husband and her new boyfriend, and she asks me to explain Bangkok politics to her. By the time I've sharpened the hook and worked the kinks out of 30 feet of line, she's ready to snuggle up to a comic book and let me fish. Today it would be her phone, wouldn't it? The fish that inhabit the ponds of the Chalong Fishing Park, for the most part, are no longer than June's hand. There are some netted enclosures suspended from huge chunks of styrofoam in the middle of each pond, where the big boys who supply that fridge in the kitchen come from. June says that occasionally one of those big suckers will get out through a torn net, and some lucky angler will hook himself a keeper. I've never seen it, but I don't think June would lie to me about fish. Since it's not really in the best interests of the park that customers actually catch anything they can eat, the bait provided is a soft mush of pureed shrimp that looks like modeling clay and smells like death. You're supposed to knead this mess into walnut-sized balls and mold them around your hook. And it is not uncommon to throw a beautiful cast, only to watch as hook and bait fly off in separate directions. If by chance the bait stays on the hook, but you haven't felt a tug within 1 minute, you might as well reel in, because the minnows that make up the bulk of life in the ponds will have nibbled the hook shiny clean already. I counter this by soaking bread crusts in the bait mixture overnight, but it's really only for form's sake. I don't go fishing to catch fish. I leave that to the bubbas. I go fishing because it's not the office. It's not the wife, and it's not the kid. I go fishing because my grandpa said that God does not hold time spent fishing against your allotted time on earth. I go fishing to listen to the waterfalls, to the temple bells, to the crickets and the ducks. I go to watch the swallows and the fish compete for the dragonflies that skim the ponds, and to watch the shadow of Uncle Deep's coconut palm stretch out across the endless flooded rows of watercress and hyacinth. It was Doom who first pointed out Uncle Deep's coconut tree. Anybody who lives in the tropics knows that coconuts will only grow naturally on low ground. The nuts are too heavy to blow uphill and on the wind, or to be carried by animals. So that's why you always hear of palm-fringed beaches and never palm-shrouded mountaintops. They cannot propagate uphill. And if there's a coconut growing anywhere above the high tide mark, it's because some human planted it there. Uncle Deep's coconut tree is on the crest of the tallest mountain overlooking the Chelong Fishing Park. Joom says that Uncle Deep carried a coconut up the mountain when he was a young man and told his fiancée that he would love her as long as the tree still grew. Uncle Deep is more than 70 now, blind, and on his 6th wife. I asked Joom how Uncle Deep got his odd name, and she giggled and blushed and said that his first wife gave him that name. Deep. What is the Thai word for deep? Dam. I forget. But I had to transcribe it in English for this story for the audience to understand the joke. His first wife called him Deep. Giggle, giggle, giggle. Oddly, it occurs to me now, here in town, if they don't call me Lung Fai Chak or Uncle Cigarette Lighter, they call me Lung Deep, because that's how they say Steve. A Thai person cannot pronounce an S and a T together, and they cannot pronounce a V. So Steve becomes Deep. I am Lung Deep. Life imitating art. When the shadow of Uncle Deep's love, God, I cannot remember the word for deep. I have forgot all the Thai I knew. Ugh, it's sad. It has nothing to do with the marijuana abuse. I'm certain. Yeah, that's not the problem. When the shadow of Uncle Deep's love token reaches the first pond and the sunset, regular as clockwork this close to the equator, breaks into a million pieces on the rippled surface of the ponds, the management puts local country music onto a public address system for the middle-aged men who bring their minor wives to eat at this out-of-the-way spot in the evenings. It is incumbent on a Thai man, if a woman assumes the status of minor wife, it is incumbent on him to take her out in public. She will expect that. She will demand that. But he has to, which is fine, he'll do that, but he has to take her someplace his wife or anybody who knows him won't see him. Or nobody will narc on him, because Thai women are very forgiving about extramarital affairs unless it causes them a loss of face. No Asian will suffer a loss of face willingly in any context. So he has to be discreet. So there are places you can go that are kind of out in the boonies, nice little restaurants just out in the middle of the rice paddies, where you will go in an evening and you will see a handful of middle-aged men and much younger women. And the younger women are very pleased to be there and very chatty and bright and chirpy, because this is part of their compensation package. Going out, being given face, having their face elevated by this man's willingness to appear in public with them, as long as it's not public where his wife will get wind of it. I've lost my place. Oh, local country for the middle-aged men who bring their minor wives to eat at this out-of-the-way spot in the evenings. A few of Joom's co-workers come out into the orange light and throw baskets of fish meal into the ponds, and I know it's time to go home. I give Joom a small tip for gathering up the empty Coke bottles and Tiger cans, and for releasing the 3 or 4 tiny fish I may have caught. I know by now how to unhook a fish, but considering the size of their mouths, it's best to leave it to Joom's nimble brown fingers. In a last ritual, Joom and I clean our hands on the complimentary Singapore Air handy wipes that my wife brings back from her business trips. Joom heads off to help in the kitchen, and I get in the car and start for home. But usually I'll sit in the car for a little bit, enjoying the evening and watching the ducks bed down in the weeds, and the local farmers opening floodgates to let the ponds of the Chalong Fishing Park bring life into their vegetable fields. The bubbas don't know what they're missing. I was writing a column at that time for a fishing magazine. That's why it shows up. Southeast Asian Fishing World. I wrote 6 columns for a column called The Jonah, which was about a guy who hates boats and but loves fishing. And so how you cope with that. And I got flown down to Singapore 3 or 4 times. Until the magazine folded, ran out of money, and stopped paying me. It was a good gig. Working girls. Oh! I think you'll like this one. Working girls. In 1980, a writer named Martin O'Brien got Pan Books to pay for an around-the-world journey with the sole purpose of experiencing and writing about as many of the world's prostitutes as possible. Can you imagine? He sold that pitch in 1980, sure. Now, you want to know about prostitutes around the world, you just put that into the search bar on YouTube. There's 100 guys out there doing that. There's 100 guys just in Thailand, telling you, oh, this is what you should pay a freelancer, and this is how you act in a massage parlor if you want a hand job, blah, 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 blah. It's all free. You could not in a million years now find a publisher who would give you an advance and pay for your airplane tickets to fly around the world and write a book of reviews of the commercial sex industry in 10 different countries. That was 1980. Between Halloween and New Year's Eve, he visited, 19 cities on 5 continents and purchased the favors of at least 25 women and 2 men, and published his adventures in a book called All the Girls. In only 2 episodes does Mr. O'Brien mention using condoms. And in about 1983, he was probably one of the first people in Britain to have himself tested for the HIV antibody. Oh, a more innocent age. Artists in general, and writers specifically, have always been fascinated by the commercial sex industry. Of course, anybody in publishing will tell you that sex sells, and a book printed under a cover featuring a photo of a woman's thighs wrapped in garter belt and silk stockings will sell well no matter what's in the book. Asia seems to be fertile ground for the author wishing to explore the theme of harlot with a heart of gold. Witness the world of Susie Wong, M. Butterfly, and Miss Saigon, and A Woman of Bangkok as well. Mr. O'Brien even squeezed the Kingdom of Smiles into his itinerary. Oh, Steve gets it wrong. This is the Land of Smiles. Thailand is LOS, the Land of Smiles. The Kingdom of Smiles, I think, is Botswana, somewhere in Africa, sells itself as the Kingdom of Smiles. So Thailand is the Land of Smiles. So I got that wrong here. The local residents of the floating world stack up very well against stiff competition, according to Mr. O'Brien, beating out even the girl in Leningrad, who shared half of a frozen orange with her client. Yeah, her room that she took him to, this woman in Leningrad, was so cold, she had oranges in her room, and after they had sex, she offered the author half of an orange, and it was frozen. The orange was just from being in her room, and that's how she lived. She lived in an igloo, basically. And people say, why do women work this way? Well, everybody got to eat. Everybody got to pay the rent. Of course, with its lenient attitude toward the oldest profession, Thailand has had its share of books in this mold. Every bookstore in the kingdom has a shelf full of novels and anthologies that all begin with the line, you know, I knew a bar girl once who ... Some of these books are great, like A Woman of Bangkok by Jack Reynolds. Most are simply awful, like Faces of the Night, wherein a bar girl introduces herself to a trick by quoting Somerset Maugham. There is obviously a popular conception or misconception that the life of a working girl is full of romance, intrigue, and passion. The truth is that you cannot live on Phuket for any length of time without getting to know at least a few of these girls and boys. And you soon learn that their lives are no more romantic or fascinating than those of the people who deliver your mail. So, what's his name? Pilun. He's a cattle farmer, and he comes out here and in the mornings he cuts the grass that grows on the greensward to feed his cattle. I don't know if you can hear that, but I'm going to turn this off real quick and go shut the front door. So that's Pilun. And he will cut all this grass, and you can't really see his motorcycle. He's got a samlaw behind that tree. And he'll cut down a bunch of grass and load it up and take it back to his cows. And I suppose that as labor intensive as this is, it's easier than driving the cattle to fresh grass. And he does not wear eye protection or ear protection, and he'll do this for like an hour. I don't know how he's not deaf, but that's Pilun. That's his office. Oh, and that's Andrew. Waddy Cup, good morning. Andrew is 93 now, I think. And that was some punk from the Voc Tech College. All right, we're gonna go back in and read. We're back. Thank you for your patience. So we are talking about a book called All the Girls. When published in 1980, a time when writing about prostitutes was, risque. Ha, ha. So there is a misconception that the lives of prostitutes are filled with romance. And you soon learn, living on Phuket, that their lives are no more romantic or fascinating than those of the people who deliver your mail. Of course, it's a lot harder to walk into a publisher's office and sell a manuscript about letter carriers of the world. Sex is something we're all interested in, and while so is our mail, not to the same degree. There is no bar in Patong called special delivery. Nobody gets paid 1,000 baht a night to lick stamps. And the fascination with sex for money is not limited to men. It is, more often than not, women who quiz resident expatriates about that aspect of life on Phuket. But when you live here and you see it all around you every day, you realize just how unglamorous it really is. You see the same girls lining up at the gold shop every week, selling when the paper says the price is up and buying when it's down. You see them in line at the post office too, sending money home. You see them in the clinics and in police vans and on the bus and on the beach and on the backs of shaky rented motorcycles driven by sunburned tourists. You hear them call their dates Tirak, because they can't ever keep all those foreign names straight. You see the managers of cheap restaurants and guest houses fawn all over girls they wouldn't allow in their own homes, because the girls will bring in a different rich tourist every week. You see the Thai wives of expatriates look uncomfortable going out to certain places, because on this island, to be seen with a farang, even if you're wearing a wedding ring and an Anne Klein tailored business suit, is to be labeled a common tramp. Mia Chao, Sopeni, and Gully. Ooh, that last one, man, don't ever use that word. You hear the dirty words whispered behind their backs or shouted in their faces. You hear the stories about how they ripped off some unlucky guy or were brutalized by another. You read the stories in the papers about women and girls being kidnapped and forced into virtual slavery, and you meet many more who've been offered an escape from the bars by a generous client, their families, or some charitable group, and who turn it down and stay on the game for the money, the music, the noise, and the freedom. It's not romantic or provocative or exciting. It's just tamada, just normal. And still, books like Mr. O'Brien's sell like hotcakes. The one with the super literate hooker is in its third printing, despite illustrations that look like a demented child's doodles, and the fact that there isn't a pro in the country who knows all the words to Jingle Bells, let alone any modern English literature. Encouraged by these books and by movies, magazine articles, and even the paintings in the Louvre, thousands of unattractive or emotionally crippled men visit Phuket every year looking for excitement, adventure, and romance. And thousands of poor, undereducated, or just plain lazy women and girls come south to provide it, or a shoddy imitation of it. Despite the glossy brochures of the Tourism Authority, there are still more people visiting the crummiest go-go bar on the island every day than the most sublime temple or waterfall. Boy, that has changed. That has changed. Sex tourism is dwarfed by normal tourism now. You know, busloads of 90 Chinese at a time don't go downtown to Soi Bangla to see the hookers. They go up the hill to the Big Buddha. Yeah, but back then, when I wrote this, you know, most of the tourists, at least that I saw, who came to Phuket, tended to be, you know, middle-aged white guys looking for sex. And every day, the girls get up, they do their laundry, they eat lunch, they watch some TV, they write a letter, or they read a cartoon book. They gossip with their friends, and in the evenings they fix their faces, pick out an outfit, and go to work. Regular as the Daily Mail. There's little drama in their lives and absolutely no romance. But as for Lung Banjong, the 60-year-old ex-monk, ex-communist guerrilla, ex-smuggler, and ex-prize fighter who likes to sing Julie London songs, loves his king, and delivers my mail each day on a 500cc motorcycle he made himself from spare parts. Now there's a story. Oh, Steve, you were so bad at, I had not gone to graduate school yet. I didn't know you weren't supposed to lie in creative nonfiction. There was no home delivery of mail on Phuket in those days. Lung Banjong was the guy I had roomed with when I worked on Heaven and Earth, a movie by Oliver Stone, and Lung Banjong was an ex-monk, an ex-communist guerrilla, an ex-smuggler, an ex-prize fighter, and he did like Julie London, and he built his own motorcycle. But I needed a postman. I needed to make that comparison between the lives of postmen and the lives of prostitutes. You know what really got a reaction from this? A guy named Michael Smithies, who used to write movie and book reviews for the Bangkok Post. And he actually wrote his own book called A Bight of Bangkok. Bight spelled B-I-G-H-T, meaning a bend in a rope, because the Chao Phraya River has an S-curve as it goes through Bangkok. And he thought, I don't know what he thought, but he was a terrible writer. It just sucked. And yeah, he wrote a story about a hooker who is apparently a graduate student at Chula University who's paying her tuition by dancing in a go-go bar. And she meets this Farang, and they exchange quotes from Somerset Maugham. That is the fantasy, I suppose. A guy wants an Eastern seductress. He wants the what he thinks will be a submissive, obliging woman. But he also wants her to be able to carry on a conversation. He wants her to speak English because he's too lazy to learn any Thai. That is the male fantasy. So this guy who was an employee of a newspaper, he'd been in Bangkok for years and years, and his job was criticizing literature. And he writes this terrible, terrible story about this unbelievable character. And I just didn't even name the book, didn't even name the author. But I know he reads my column because he wrote me a really angry letter that I would dare to criticize his writing in the newspaper. That's his whole fucking job, criticizing other people's writing in the newspaper. But he thought it was an affront that I would presume to be able to critique his writing. Yeah, Michael Smithies. I'm sure he's in the ground now. Fathers and sons. All right, this is about my son. Ear is still intact. My son Andy celebrated his 10th month of life outside the womb a few days ago. And my wife, Wee Lai, chose to mark the occasion by celebrating the return of her figure. While I was pleased to mark the passing of both milestones, it was a day I had been dreading. In February 1994, Phuket hosted the Johnny Walker Golf Classic, and that was when I interviewed Tiger Woods. Probably the pinnacle of my posturing as a journalist in the 90s. I actually got a private interview over lunch with Tiger Woods at a golf tournament. He was 19 and not famous yet. And my interview, published in Thailand Tatler magazine, did not make him famous. If you're not a fan of the sport of golf, you've probably still heard of Tiger Woods, a rookie phenom who shot a 39 over 9 holes at the tender age of 3 and was offered $1 million to putt in a commercial with Arnold Palmer when he was only 5. He became the highest paid athlete in the world at a time when most young men are taking their first college class or buying their first car. If you're not a fan of golf, but like me, are the father of an Amerasian child, Tiger Woods is important because his father is an American and his mother is Thai. I interviewed his father, Earl Woods, and I interviewed his mother. I forget her name. I interviewed all three of them because that's where his career was at that time. You could just walk up to this guy at the bar and say, "You're Tiger's dad, aren't you? Can I talk to you?" Yeah, Earl Woods turned down $1 million when his son was 5 to appear in a 30-second commercial with Arnold Palmer because he wanted his son to be able to go to Stanford University when he grew up, and he wanted him to go on scholarship. He didn't think he'd have the money to pay for his son to go to college. He was already retired and living on Social Security when Tiger was born. So he turns down $1 million so that when 13 years later, when his son is college age, he can go for free on a sports scholarship. And this is the guy who was managing Tiger Woods' career. Can you imagine? You put $1 million in the bank or in whatever when the kid is 5, and by the time he's 18, the interest alone will pay for college, Dad. The guy, Earl Woods, he was, oh well, don't get me started. Who am I to criticize another father, right? Oh, where was I? Oh, okay. His father's an American and his mother's Thai. I was struggling to find something to write about at the Johnny Walker Classic, and after the first day, I only had a single page of notes about how much I hate golf. When into my life walked 18-year-old Tiger Woods. Like most people of mixed Western and Eastern blood, he was beautiful. He was tall and possessed of an athletic grace. During our short interview, conducted over lunch in the clubhouse, he would not smile, and answered me in the short, safe sound bites that come naturally to someone who was a regular guest on the talk shows before he started grade school. I didn't know anything about the sport, so I asked Tiger questions that would be most on the minds of Thai readers. Do you speak Thai? Do you worship the Buddha? Do you like Thai food? Do you have a girlfriend? Tiger, who's been hounded by the press since he was in preschool, only wanted to talk about golf. And I could sense him getting angrier with every question I asked. But when I summoned a photographer to the table, Tiger turned on a smile that disrupted air traffic control signals as far away as Hong Kong. Then after the picture was taken, he turned that smile back off, just like shutting off a light switch. Yeah, he was not a happy young man, but he knew how to turn on that smile for the cameras. I suppose he still does. There's a story that I'm actually burying the more interesting story for this because it was going in the newspaper, and I didn't want to talk about it in the newspaper, but I'll tell you at the end of this. I let Tiger go off to the showers as soon as he finished his sandwich. Lie. I guess I do tell this story. That's the version I tell when I tell this story at dinner parties. In truth, Tiger suddenly got up from the table. He mumbled, "I gotta hit the showers." And he moved off. After a couple of steps, he paused. He turned back to our table. He picked up his sandwich and his Coke, and without a word, he walked away again. He's going to go eat in the showers. He's going to eat in the locker room rather than sit with Steve Rosse. Feeling like somebody who's just been caught pretending to be something he's not, which was the case, I crept back to the clubhouse to have a beer. Seated at the bar was an enormous black man who in that company could have only been Tiger Woods' dad. I sat down a stool away from him and tried to think of a way to strike up a conversation. But when he saw me light a cigarette, he leaned over and said, "Hey man, can I bum one of those?" It turned out that the Blue Canyon did not at that time yet have a license to sell tobacco. And Mr. Woods was jonesing for a smoke. He bought my beer and I slid my Marlboros and lighter between us, where he could reach them both. And that's when I got my interview. The kind of interview I'm used to doing. where I share a beer and a few smokes with a man close to my age and find out what his life is like. Earl Woods is a retired Army officer who thinks that God, all true, God prepared him for managing his son's career by steering his own life through some very specific channels. After one beer and 3 cigarettes, I believed it too. Mr. Woods also loves Tiger very much and loves to talk about him. He gave me just the stuff that the editors love and that Tiger keeps to himself. And out of my short time with Mr. Woods and that fantastic photograph, I was able to make a nice story for Thailand Tatler, which put my conscience to rest about accepting the free Johnny Walker tote bag. In those days, journalists, they would give us, junk. They gave me a big tote bag with a Greg Norman cowboy hat and a bottle of Johnny Walker and a couple polo shirts and some monogrammed golf balls, all put in this big Johnny Walker travel bag, which I used, oh God, for 30 years. I carried that thing when I traveled. I don't travel much, so it lasted a long time. Somewhere in that long, beery conversation, I asked Mr. Woods when was the first time he knew he had a gifted child. He told me that when Tiger came along, he, Earl, was already retired, and he'd just taken up golf. While Mrs. Woods went off to work each day, she had a Thai restaurant in LA, Mr. Woods would tend to little Tiger, which most of the time meant putting him on his high chair in the garage where Mr. Woods was practicing driving balls into a net. He said that Tiger watched him practice for about a month, and then one day, when Tiger was 10 months old, Mr. Woods cut a putter down to about a foot long, wrapped the end of the shank in tape, and stood Tiger before the net. Just as a joke, or out of boredom, or to make a novelty photograph, I don't know. But, Mr. Woods said, Tiger took a correct stance over the ball, looked at the net, looked down, wiggled his hips. Looked at the net, looked down, wiggled his hips, and whack! The ball went right into the center of the net. I haven't seen Mr. Woods since that day, and I never will again. But this anecdote about Tiger's first swing at the age of 10 months has haunted me, as do the faces of Thongchai McIntyre and Christina Aguilar, and all the other mixed-race children who dominate the Thai media, still do. Lisa's half Swiss, I think, Lisa. She was the woman on White Lotus. She's just everywhere now, from Blackpink, the girl group Blackpink, Korean girl group. And Lisa is huge right now. Back then it was Thongchai McIntyre. And the story of how Thongchai McIntyre's career in Thailand ended is frightening. Yeah, we kind of go along thinking this is a casual la-di-da kind of place, but no, these people get serious about some things. And poor P-Bud was his name, Thongchai McIntyre. McIntyre. His career was cut abruptly short. He made one mistake, but it was a huge, huge mistake. Wasn't even his, I can't talk about it. Who knows who might see this? I can't talk about it. But at any rate, these stars and the Luke Krung at the local international school, and even the little boy who sells flowers in the bars of Patong, and the girl who dances naked in a certain go-go bar, all appear to me to be mystically beautiful, uncommonly graceful, and abnormally bright. For the last 10 months, I've been watching my own boy for signs of these blessings, but to date, I've seen nothing out of the ordinary. Andy can walk if I hold his hands, and with coaching, he can crawl up the flight of stairs between our living room and the bedroom landing. He cannot speak beyond a few coos and giggles. He is, according to Dr. Spock, exactly where he should be for a child of 10 months, but not where he should be according to the standards set by children with parents from opposite banks of the gene pool in Thailand. Last week, as Andy rubbed cake into the sofa and Wheelie modeled her new bathing suit, I remembered something Mr. Woods said as I left him at the bar of the Blue Canyon Country Club. I'd asked him if he ever thought that Tiger performed well on the golf course to please his dad. Mr. Woods said, "He does it because that's what he does. He knows it makes no difference to me what he does. He'll always be my boy." And I know now that it does not matter if Andy ever plays a sport or a musical instrument or ever writes a novel. He's my boy, and I'll always be just as proud of him as Earl Woods is of Tiger. I am proud of both my children. I have not spoken to my daughter in 5 years. I have no idea where she is or what she's doing. She does not want me in her life. She's ghosted me on all social media. She has no presence in Google. She has no footprint online. I assume she is still alive, and I hope she is very happy, and I hope she is accomplishing what she wants to accomplish in this world. But I have no idea, and likely I will die before it would take her coming to me, because I can't find her. It would take her coming to me to make a rapprochement, to make a détente, to have a relationship again, and I don't think she'll be ready to do that before I die. That is just the way that turned out. But I'm still very proud of my children. You know, there's this thing, I mentioned the Luke Krung woman, the little boy selling flowers, the very poor little boy who is Luke Krung, who is biracial, selling flowers on the bar sways, and the biracial woman dancing in a bar. I saw this once, and it haunted me for a long time. A Luke Krung, a half Farang, half Thai woman, young, gorgeous, stunning woman. And she came into this bar, this go-go bar, and she walks through the crowd from the street, didn't come at start of shift. She just came in at like 9 o'clock at night. She walked through the bar with this stoic expression on her face. She went to the dressing room. She comes out of the dressing room buck naked. She gets up on the catwalk. She danced to 1 or 2 songs without looking at the audience, staring into the mirrors, not looking at the men in the room at all, not teasing, not flirting. And when she finished a couple of numbers, dancing provocatively on the bar, as they do, but not directing it at anybody, not making eye contact with anyone, not trying to get a drink out of anyone or a tip. She walks off the bar, she goes in the back room, comes back out fully clothed again, eyes straight ahead, walks through the room and out the front door. And for a long time, I couldn't figure out what I was seeing. She comes in, nobody challenges her, nobody in the bar, none of the other women, the bar manager seemed to know her, know what she's doing. She comes in, she dances 2 numbers, 2 songs, and walks right out, still alone. And somebody, who was it, told me that it was, maybe still is, common that when a very wealthy man who has an absolutely stunning, high-class mistress, there went my ear. We'll stop now. He has a high-class mistress, and he wants to punish her. She has displeased him in some way. He will make her go to a go-go bar where he is perhaps invested, or is he well known. He has a connection in a bar, and he will make her go there and dance naked in front of all these strangers to punish her for whatever slight she has committed. And I imagine there's also a little bit of, it gets him horny to see her demeaned and debased this way. Oh, you think you're all that, and I pay you all this money, and I buy you a beautiful condo, and I buy you a car, and I buy you beautiful clothes and gold jewelry, and you think you're all high class, but it turns me on to see you dancing naked in a room full of strangers. So if you want to keep all that shit, you go dance. And he's in the audience, obviously. One of the men there, we assume, was her sponsor. And that's what I witnessed. And that stuck with me for a long time. Yeah, I'm going to wrap it up. My ear just went pop. So, Maddie, you have a great day. Boy, this one, I had to struggle through this one. I don't know. You know, some days it's easy, and some days it is not. But we got through it together. All right, bud, take it easy.